I really need to update this background. It's a light agenda today, gentlemen, so if there's anything you'd like to chat about, feel free to throw it on the notes or in the chat, wherever.
I just had a quick question about OCI layout storing multiple images in the layout and determining their references. So right now I'm storing them and then using the annotation ref name to differentiate between the different for references, but I'm storing that as the full reference, like ghcr.io slash library nginx colon 2.1. Because it says in the spec that semantically there are no restrictions around ref name, but the example shown, our ref name is the reference part of the OCI full reference, not the what's traditionally called in like auras the OCI reference object. And so I was wondering, is there a better way that I should be doing this? Should I be using a combination of, I think it's the version and I don't think it's title. Forget the other one. Or is there a specific annotation that I should be using for the full OCI reference, not just the reference's name?
See, you're not chomping at the bit. Go for it.
The spec is particular about the ref.name field and affords for it to be the full reference. There's an EBNF grammar directly in the definition of the annotation that specifies that the full reference is not only valid there, but the intended value of the field.
I don't know intended. I would say acceptable.
I just wanted to make sure I wasn't doing something egregious, that I should be using a combination of other annotations for storing the full reference. I read the grammar, and I read through, but the grammar is not referenced in the, or maybe it probably is actually. I'm not going to say that. The grammar is not copied into the image layout markdown file, the image spec. And so and then the examples given only have it as basically the tags of an image. So I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing something completely wrong.
So here's the real kicker. OCI does not define what a reference is. We have no definition of how you refer to images on different registries or anything like that. Not part of OCI. Should be. I've thrown it out there as a TOB thing. Do we want to spin up a working group on this kind of stuff? But we've never done that.
There's no definition of what a reference is, but I believe, ORAS at least has a regex for what a reference string can be constructed of.
But ORAS is not part of the OCI.
True.
Or affiliated with in any way.
They are an implementation of.
So there's a lot more wacky things that a reference can be, huh?
Yeah, so different people have come up with their own idea of what a reference should look like. If you go looking over at the containers project from Red Hat, they start to prefix it with a schema. A lot of folks have gone with the Docker implementation. That comes out of the distribution project now. They've got that repo over there. But OCI has never gone through the effort of specifying that. Probably should, just haven't done it. And so from one point in our spec, we can't put a pointer to it because we don't have anywhere to point to say this is what the field should contain.
In the early days of the OCI, there were even people talking about / doing distribution of images over like IPFS, for which the references are totally different than they would be for an OCI distribution spec compliant registry.
In a way, they are doing that today. It just requires different registry implementation.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Anytime you want to throw one of those in here, go for it.
I got plenty.
Yeah, that one has If you go digging around, the other thing I'll point you to is Container D has their own annotation, and their annotation explicitly is for an entire reference, or at least the entire image name without the tag, possibly. I'd have to double check that.
Yeah, it is the full reference, but they probably don't store the communication protocol. They probably don't have HTTP or HTTPS, so technically you don't know whether or not that reference is insecure. There's a whole bunch of extra things that could be included in that because
Yep.
the distribution reference is not a true URL.
Yep. When I mentioned that the Red Hat Containers project is doing a schema in front of it, they might allow HTTP and other stuff, but primarily it is things like Docker // versus the individual local repository for
Hmm.
Podman or something like that.
Yeah, I
They
think
have
Bootsy also has like OCI-layout pointing to a
yeah,
local file.
yeah. I've been doing that in Reg client, doing an OCI dir // just to differentiate OCI layouts versus other locations. But yeah, not not part of our spec yet, so we don't have anywhere to point to. Always happy to talk about adding more things in the spec, though. We got plenty of room to grow.
So that's a good segue to bringing back half the distribution spec, right?
I keep wanting to delete half of it and just reformat everything. At that point, I'm just kind of being a little trollish, so I'll behave. Um, the only thing I threw on the agenda, I don't know if we have a person here to, well, not sure. Do we have a maintainer here on image spec other than Tianon? Sajay hasn't gotten here yet, so no, I don't think we have anybody here for that one right now. Tianon, I hope I threaded that needle just barely narrow enough for the canonical JSON. You seem to approve.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Ideally, people would start making their stuff canonical. I'll probably look at whether I want to do that in some of my own code at some point here in the not too distant future.
Ideally, people would stop talking about canonical JSON. It shouldn't be a thing.
I mean, the section above talks about reusing content from different, different implementations can push the same content and it just sees
Yeah,
as the
but
same content.
this disagreement we have is exactly why I was okay with your PR, because I feel like you walked that line just right to where I can live with this. It's not recommending canonical JSON. It's not disrecommending it. People who want it can do it. People who don't want it and don't care for it can ignore it.
And people that do it all point to the same RFC.
Sure.
And we clarified everything as UTF-8, which that I think we all like. All right, that was the only thing I threw on there. Oh, who is throwing this agenda item on here? Sam, you want to chat about KubeCon?
Yeah, I mean, I was just wondering if there was any interest in having an in-person meeting at KubeCon EU.
And that's coming soon, isn't it? Is that like a week or so away?
It's the beginning of April.
Okay.
I would say the clamor of people trying to talk right now indicates how much interest there is.
It's just a question of who's going to be there. I feel like the folks that show up to that stuff don't have a strong overlap with the folks that attend these meetings. Doesn't mean there's not an interest, it just means they're not here. We're
Okay, yeah,
also
I mean,
looking. Go
I,
ahead.
I asked Jory to see what the process would be for us to get a room, but I haven't heard back yet. So
Yeah. If you're trying to get a hold of her, I know right now she's not here today because she was messaging me just before this saying she's hopping on a plane. Um, and her big question is that she's going to be starting to do some CFP processing or basically getting the wheels moving on the CFP for, it was Open Source Summit, I think, that has their extra day event for us. I believe.
Yeah, I think that's right. The container plumbing day.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is still in the works. And I was chatting with someone the other day. It mentioned that there's a whole lot more open source developers over in the EU versus in the US, but maybe that would get a lot of turnout and they just don't show up here. But oh, the thing I was going to say, if you're trying to get a hold of Jory, since she is like on and off and not super responsible in the Slack, send the email to operations at opencontainers.org. And that kind of gets a response that hits a few people on the back end there that can load balance that request.
Okay. I don't think I was aware of that email list.
Yeah, I think they set it up after Amy was dropping off. I think that was kind of like a transition thing, but they like using that.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, I see more comments here. Folks like Rom chatting about fully qualified reference names. I feel like there's a push that we should make a standard on this. I just don't have the bandwidth right now, but if folks want to do that, I'm all for it. All right. Anything else folks want to chat about? I didn't have much on the agenda today, so this is kind of a you time. Otherwise, we can wrap this up quicker rather than later. Oh man, you folks are ready to go. Okay, going once, going twice. Now's your chance. Call it a good rest of the week here. We'll circle back next week and see what landmines Harry can throw our way this time. So have a good one, everybody.
Thank you.